So if you've been following the channel, then you know I released a review for a game called Unalive 010 and was very critical of it. After I released the video, it didn't feel quite right that I never completed it, especially given the type of game that it is. So consider this review an extension of the last, which I'll link right here if you haven't watched it. Let's go ahead and get into it. Whenever you start the game, you're immediately shown a tutorial note, which is the most help you'll get for the game, so keep that in mind. There are some missable trophies, but most will be gained while playing the game. A great deal of them are tied to killing a certain number of enemies, with a few being artifact and upgrade specific, and the last being complete the game, which is essentially tied to one for beating the final boss. Ways to make that easier and to get more trophies are to upgrade your health and your drone. Gathering the resources needed to make the chips can have your drone maxed out in a few runs, and will leave you able to focus on ammo types and medkits for your final run. Upgrading your health leads to a trophy as well, and it is also permanent progression that remains after death. These are your main goals before committing to story completion, just to make things a little easier. Eventually, as you progress, you will gain many artifacts as I mentioned before. The balancing late game is affected by this, and although the bosses are still bullet sponges, the normal enemies become far more tolerable. So although things are very rough in the middle with the normal mobs soaking damage, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Credit where it's due. One of my criticisms were the balancing, and they still hold water, but I believe it's due to them trying to make the late game still some semblance of a challenge even with the artifacts. I think a way to balance all three sections, early, middle, and late, would be to make the artifacts not entirely randomized, but instead have programmed randomized sets. For example, in early game, get enough to make mid-game easier, like the vision that allows you to see health and weaknesses of enemies, so the middle game enemies can still be stronger, but since we are 2 and know their weaknesses, it doesn't pose any significant issue like it does now. Then mid-game can prepare you for the stronger late-game enemies, so although noticeably harder due to the extra attacks, it's not because of the abundance of health, which they did do for the late game, just used it as an example since in my run that's exactly what happened. Once you have upgraded everything, filled your trophy case quite a bit, you will have to make it to the vampire boss fight. There's normally 3 bosses leading up to it, a worm and 2 that actually fight back. Thankfully on my last run I got whatever this guy is instead of the purple dinosaur dude. Hate that guy. Regardless, the boss fights boil down to bob and weave, as Raiden would say, then shoot everywhere. The enemies are so plentiful and so fast, it's better to shoot wherever they could be when off screen than to wait for their approach. Best part of unlimited ammo. Depending on the artifacts you have, and this is what I meant by balancing, you could be doing more damage or healing yourself by killing mobs, which the healing is what saved me, honestly. Without that, I would have died multiple times. One extremely good artifact gives a slim chance of revival. In my numerous playthroughs, it only popped up a couple times, but it's definitely the one to be hoping for when you're headed towards late game. The levels aren't a straight path either. In some areas, there's a door east as well as south, but the experience doesn't change too much based on which one you go through. Just focus on killing the enemies for those trophies and collecting artifacts to make that easier, as well as to unlock the trophies related to them, while spending the collected resources whenever you have them, since death makes you lose them all anyway. Exploiting weaknesses is helpful mid-game. Red enemies are usually damaged more by the blue attacks, then, well, it's a guessing game for the rest. Until you get the vision artifact that I brought up earlier that allows you to see weaknesses if there are any. The enemy variety does change late game, but besides the green goober, there aren't nearly as much of a challenge as just having a room with the pods in it, so there is a ray of light if the huge splash damage was really ticking you off. Now you have all the trophies but 2, you've collected almost all the heads for your trophy case, and you're ready to finish the game once and for all. Now it's time for the vampire boss fight. This boss fight isn't too much of a switch up from every other one in terms of strategy, but there's 2 reasons I wanted to bring it up. One, being I love vampires, and I dig his design when attacking as well as in the first cutscene we get at the end. Second, because fire isn't his weakness, which was a huge missed opportunity. He's not too much more of a challenge than the rest, so giving him a weakness, especially as the final boss, would be kind of counterintuitive, but like, that would have been a pretty good homage to vampires in games and vampires in general. I mean, I think even Skyrim has vampires starting off with like 20% fire damage or something, or 20% increase in damage if you use fire, something like that. I don't even remember. It's been too long since I played Skyrim, but it would have been nice if we made it there, and after all these bosses not having any real weaknesses, you get to the vampire and he's the one that has a weakness to fire. That would have been such a good Easter egg. He's not too much more of a challenge than the rest, and just like his companions, he only has one real attack, so again, bob and weave. Tatsurian the Unchained would approve. Would have been better if he took more fire damage though in that case. But this has brought you to finishing the game, which is the most disappointing aspect out of all of it. They add story by the end, well, kind of. But with the way the story says your guy is now locked in a lab forever so the enemies don't escape, it gave me hope for one thing, that we will now restart with all our artifacts. A reward for all the trials and tribulations we just went through, and it would make sense in case of the story since we still have to protect the place even though the game's beat so the horrors and the evils don't escape. That's all I wanted to do. Blow through the place and make it feel my wrath. Take on the mid-game with power I wish I had earlier. But alas, the game starts you over fresh, murdering all replay value all in one moment by taking away any semblance of a rewarding feeling for doing it. You've done everything, collected all trophies including the ones in your trophy case, maxed out everything but your health, encountered every enemy, probably used every artifact and faced every boss. What more is there? There isn't. I was hoping that I could say to get it for the full priced $5, but the decision to reset your character even after a successful run just killed that, especially now that there is nothing else to do. I was rough on it in my early review, and some things have improved now that I finished it with more enemy variety, some semblance of a story, better balancing late game. The issue I had where I couldn't get the health upgrade was solved by uninstalling and reinstalling the game, but the mid-game slog to get there and the absence of rewards by the end just sours an overall pretty basic experience. If you're a trophy hunter with some patience, then give it a go, but if not, it's only worth burning a few hours, and with the sales PlayStation always has, you could get a better game for $5 anyway. I still say wait for a sale and get this one for a couple if you're curious. I mean, I was on PlayStation Store earlier and I saw a game for $6 that is far better looking in quality and severely underrated looking as well. I might need to check it out. But I can't in good faith tell anyone to go out and buy this game even for the Platinum Trophy. Is it an easy trophy? Sure, yeah. Only took a few hours. Is it worth it? Not really. You're not gonna enjoy it, it's not gonna be fun, and although it did get better by the end of the game, then they ruined it by the very end of the game. So did anything really improve when something just had to happen to bog it all back down again? I came in with good faith, with good intentions. I wanted to be able to bolster this game in some way, some shape, and some form, because I hate digging into devs, especially indie devs that don't have a lot of money to work with, don't have a lot of talent maybe to work with, don't have a lot of assets to work with. I don't know what their situation is, but I can't recommend this game. You want a game that is fun, cheap, easy? Play Freddy Spaghetti. It's got some good humor. Play Mr. Masagi. It's freaking weird as heck, but yeah, good humor. My Name is Mayo 2. Hilarious, actually. It had no right to be as good as it was. That was a really good game. Easy trophies, cheap price, and there's still love put into it. Besides a good few ideas like the trophy case, like the idea of having the drone, besides the very good art in the last cutscene, and besides the fact that the game is in fact playable, that's all that it really has going for it. There are hints in here of a good game, and there was even more now that I finished it, but there was just so much that made it feel rushed, stale, bland, boring. It's not bad, it's not good, it's just there. But with all that being said, I do have hope for the developers in the future, due to the good ideas that were within the game. Learn from this, execute the next game better, and hit me up. I'll review it. I'll review every game you make, as long as you improve in one thing every single time. And then eventually you'll make a masterpiece, and I'd love to be here for that. Anyway, for more news, reviews, and whatever we choose, stay tuned to Nerdsfeed. And like always, have a great day.